Today, we're heading back to ancient Greece to explore a really wild idea. What if your city wasn't just a city, but your entire country? That's the whole concept behind the Greek polis, and honestly, it changed everything.
Seriously, just imagine it for a second. Your government, your army, all your laws, everything contained right there inside the walls of your city and its nearby farms. For the ancient Greeks, this wasn't some thought experiment. It was just how they lived.
So a polis, that's the key word here, wasn't just a city. It was a totally self-governing, independent country. Each one had its own identity, its own rules, and it fiercely protected its freedom. You shouldn't think of ancient Greece as one single nation, but more like a collection of over 1,000 of these tiny, powerful city-states.
So how did this system, which sounds kind of strange to us, even get started? Well, it turns out it was born out of chaos and a basic need for safety.
Okay, so back around the 8th century BC, after this really tough period called the Greek Dark Ages, small, scattered villages started to team up. And why? Protection. It's that simple. By joining forces, they could build walls, form an actual defense against invaders, and create a strong central town that would manage all the farmland around it.
All right, let's take a quick virtual tour of a typical polis so you can see how it was all laid out. And trust me, it was very organized. Every single space had a very specific purpose. At the very top, on the highest ground, you'd find the Acropolis. This was the city's ultimate stronghold, the last line of defense if an enemy attacked. But it was also a really sacred space, home to the most important temples for the city's favorite gods.
Now, as you walk down from the Acropolis, you'd find yourself in the Agora. And this was the beating heart of the entire polis. It was an open-air market, a place for political debates, and a social hub all rolled into one. If something was happening, it was happening in the Agora.
So think about that for a second. You have the Acropolis way up high, representing the gods, power, and safety. And then down below, you've got the Agora, the loud, messy, vibrant center of human life. It's the perfect visual for the two sides of the polis, divine protection and human community.
So, who were the people walking around these spaces? Well, the society of a polis was very structured.
Now here's something that might really surprise you. Citizenship? It was incredibly exclusive. You had to be a free, adult man who was born in that specific city. That's it. If you were a woman, a child, a foreigner, or a slave, you were not a citizen, and you had zero say in how things were run.
Just look at this breakdown. The citizens who actually held all the power, they made up just a tiny fraction of the total population. The vast majority of people were their families, foreigners they called medics, and a huge population of slaves who did most of the hard work. The entire city-state was basically built on the labor of non-citizens.
And even among that small group of citizens, there was a clear hierarchy. At the very top were the wealthy landowners. They held most of the power. Below them were smaller farmers and craftsmen. Then you had the non-citizens, the foreigners, and at the absolute bottom, the slaves who had no rights at all. Being a citizen came with some amazing perks, like getting to vote, but it also came with some very serious responsibilities. It was actually a pretty demanding job.
Yeah, you couldn't just sit on the sidelines. As a citizen, you were expected to be involved, to show up and debate in the Agora, to vote on new laws, and most importantly, to be ready to pick up a spear and shield to defend your city whenever it was threatened.
And this citizen soldier had a name, the hoplite. These guys weren't professional soldiers. They were farmers, potters, and merchants who also happened to be the city's main defenders. They were, without a doubt, the backbone of every single Greek army.
And their gear was serious business. Each hoplite had to buy his own equipment, a heavy bronze shield called a hoplon, a long spear, and body armor. And this stuff was expensive, which created a really interesting link. If you could afford the gear to defend the city, you earned the right to help run it.
So how did these citizen soldiers actually fight? Well, they used a totally revolutionary military formation.
This was the phalanx. Just picture it. Hoplites standing shoulder to shoulder, locking their shields to create an almost unbreakable wall of bronze and wood with deadly spears sticking out. The whole thing depended on absolute trust and teamwork. If just one man broke rank, everyone was in danger.
Eventually, the era of the polis came to an end. But the ideas that came out of it, they completely reshaped the world, and they continue to influence us every single day.
I mean, it's right there in our language. The word politics literally just means the affairs of the polis. So every time you hear someone talk about politics, you're hearing a word that came directly from these ancient Greek city-states. Think about the incredible debt we owe them. The idea that citizens should rule themselves,
That's democracy. The concept of having written laws that apply to everyone equally, that comes from them. And that belief that you have a duty to participate in your community, all of these foundational ideas were born in the Agora and defended by the hoplites of the Polis.
So, the next time you see a student council vote, or hear about a new town law, or even just hang out in a public park, take a second to remember the Polis. What parts of that ancient world can you still see right outside your own front door?